the burnout is real strong.
What are some tips that you would give to people to make sure that they feel comfortable when they're actually on stage?
Our youngest performer was 3 and she sung her ABC. So we've had like the full gamut.
If someone's thinking about hosting their own events, what are like 3 tips that you think would be really helpful for them?
Knowing your...
If you are a poet or an artist or any sort of creative who's trying to get involved in your community, we're going to talk about some strategies that you can use to make that happen. And we're doing that with Katerina Fuller from Transit Arts in Columbus, Ohio.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
So what specifically is Transit Arts, first of all?
So Transit Arts, we are a program of Central Community House, which is a part of the Columbus Federation of Settlement Houses. Within our program, we work with largely youth between the ages of 12 to 21. We do have programs that go as low as 11 and as high as 24. But largely our population is 12 to 21. And it's youth from all around Columbus, providing them with free opportunities and workshops through the arts. So we specialize in music, dance, poetry, and visual arts.
Why has art taken that kind of central role in forming these young individuals, do you think?
Art is one of the important stepping stones in life. Art, I think, is integral and a part of being a human. And so with the way policy and education, how things change, arts typically are the first to disappear from schools. So we help provide that supplement where young people can come express themselves at no cost because we're free, because the income of your family should not be a barrier for you to become an artist.
So you're a free organization. How are you guys getting funding to do all the things you do? Because you're active.
Yeah.
We see you guys putting on shows,
Yeah.
open mic, stuff like that. Where's the funding coming from?
So we do get a lot of funding from like the city or United Way, or private funding from like the Columbus Foundation, or grants or donations.
And what would you say has been, in that process, the most difficult thing to do in terms of getting funding?
Getting funding. Like, it, Transit Arts has an over 30-year history. We're, if not the oldest, one of the oldest arts program for youth in the city. And there's a lot of competition now. There's so many great other arts organizations for young people that now it is competitive, and like that's also amazing because we can't reach all the kids in Columbus, in the Columbus area, but that there's competition now, but having that competition makes us want to be stronger and develop greater programs.
Mm-hmm. If someone's interested in maybe starting their own arts nonprofit, I know you didn't necessarily find, like, you weren't part of the founding of Transit Arts, but what are some things that you think are really crucial if someone's interested in beginning their own sort of arts nonprofit, something in that aim?
I'd say the biggest thing is heart. If you don't actually care of making community difference with your art in some shape, form, or matter, whether it's like art in mental health or art in youth, like you have to have that passion and drive to continue to do that, because if not, the burnout is real strong.
Can you speak to that a little bit more? How have you seen burnout at work in Transit
Arts? It's just, it is a lot of times it's an emotional space. At least for me, I get really invested into our young people, and you can't take away the pain of life that they experience, and it gets quite hard when you can't remove the hardships of life sometimes, but being a caring, safe adult for them is super important. And it gets emotionally exhausting sometimes, and especially coming off of all the restrictions of COVID, it was quite difficult because that has been the highest, and we're still dealing with it, dealing with the highest number of suicidal ideation with our young people, and dealing with some mental health crisis that some of our young people are going through. And it's difficult witnessing them navigate through that. And it's like, you want to take away that pain, but you can't. And like one way that we have worked to combat some of that is we developed a program just because the numbers were so high in Black girls. So we developed a program called Black Girls Glow, which is now called the Glow Project because it's open to all girls of color now. But just the numbers in suicidal ideation and mental health crisis in girls were so high that we developed a program to help combat some of that, and like dealing with like adultification and purification, specifically that like the firstborn daughters deal with, came out of developing that program. And we work with a licensed therapist who provides group counseling with all the girls in our sessions, as well as we provide a few free sessions, one-on-one sessions with the licensed therapist. And she's really great. She, if girls are really committed to, continue that work on, she provides them with a lower cost mental health sessions with her. Yeah.
I want to speak more to the art that you're doing. So how would you say art has been helping people through these, you mentioned mental health struggles, I imagine there's all kinds of family situations going on, home environments, school environments, and things like that. How do you think art is helping these young people to kind of navigate those sorts of difficulties?
Yeah, I could think of one example. It allows them to just freely express themselves, and we tried, judgments will happen, but we try to have a judgment-free zone and allow our younger people to express themselves fully. And a couple weeks ago, I actually had a parent come to me and say, "Thank you for letting my daughter be weird." And I was like, we're all weird here. So I was like, because, her uniqueness has not been quite accepted at her school environment. And but here in our space, she's allowed to be fully herself and weird. And so I forgot the rest of the question, but yes.
It's like, so you're seeing that art is a way for people to get more comfortable?
Yes, definitely. Get more comfortable with themselves. They start to find their voices. I could think we had one young lady, really shy, kind of reclusive in herself when she first came. And little by little, as she came and participate within program, you could see her confidence build. And through that, she was eventually able to have enough confidence and enoughness to step out her shell to audition for her school play. and allow people to see her in another way. And so we were all so excited for her and everything to see that growth.
How common do you think that is?
It can be. It depends on the kids. It could be quite common because we have some kids that come with booming personalities already, and it just varies. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say are some of the tendencies that like beginner artists have when they first encounter you versus artists that have been with the program for some time? What's some of the development that you notice happening?
I'll say I'll speak from our visual arts program. They'll make a lot of like replications. Anime is real big with our young people, so they'll just draw Naruto or Sailor Moon. They'll just draw characters that, or Sonic. They'll just draw characters that they're familiar with and just stick to that. And some of them, as they've gotten more comfortable, or if we'll set a challenge for them, they'll start to create their own characters. They still might be in an anime style, or they'll eventually figure out their own style. That's a big way that we'll see like improvement, or even say like in our hip hop dance program, when we're like rehearsing and everything and practicing, they'll always stand in the back of the room, and eventually they'll get more confident to come to the forefront. Or even with all our disciplines, be willing to perform at open mic. That's like a big thing. Dealing with nerves and butterflies, and like seeing them like have to step out the room and like gas themselves up, or because I know for a couple of our young people's performance, when it was their first time, I'll stand up there with you, while you're performing. I'm not reading your poetry, I'm not dancing with you, but like it's more comfortable to have somebody that's there to support you.
So let's talk a little bit more about the open mic. When did the open mic actually start becoming a program for you guys?
So, as far as I know of our history, open mic has been a part since the beginning. So, like 30 years ago, when we were under the Shortstop Youth Center, we were doing open mics. And they've continued 30 years later.
Gotcha. How would you say your open mics? You've been around to some of the other shows.
Mm-hmm.
How would you say the Transit Arts open mic is different than other open mics that are in the city?
Yeah, so typically most open mics that I have attended to are largely poetry, or like sometimes like vocal performance based. The way ours differ is our open mic is all genres. We've had everything from like a 90-year-old doing poetry to, I think this guy was in his 30s. He was a Michael Jackson impersonator. To our youngest performer was 3, and she sung her ABC. So we have had like the full gamut. And because our open mic is open to all ages, you get varying levels of skill and performance. So I know, like, one time in our summer open mics, we have a dancer. His name is Skater Drew because he skateboards. And at the open mic, him and a couple of his friends wanted to show off their skateboarding skills. So it's just we just get a plethora of things. I never know what we're going to get each week. So it's like some things, because some young people love to perform every month. And then sometimes I get surprises like that. So I don't know.
How do you set up the venue for such a wide variety of potential acts? Like a lot of stages maybe couldn't accommodate like a random skateboard,
Yeah.
performance. Like how do you prepare for that?
You really don't, because you get surprised. But so we at our spaces, now sometimes we do travel, especially like in the winter, because different spaces will be like, hey, I want to have an open mic here. And we're like, well, we'll come. But in a largely for, especially as we get ready for these warmer months, we, at our space on Brighton Road, we have a tent. So that way we can have like lights and protect people from weather. But we keep things pretty flat. It'll be nice to have a stage. We're hoping to build a stage in a couple of years. But right now we just keeping things pretty flat. We're on concrete, so those things can happen. And when we host open mics at Central Community House, we're in a parking lot, so it's pretty easy to do those things. Like specifically with the skateboarding, we were able to be like, look to your left, and
Surprise! Kickflips. Look at
yeah.
that. Okay.
So that's been the main thing. Yeah, like even I say the only time that we really were doing stuff like on stage is when we were hosting our open mics at the Vanderbilt Room when they were open. But even with that, people would jump off the stage. They would dance off the stage. So play with crowd work. So again, we never know.
It sounds like you guys are doing a lot of things at other shows. It would be difficult for other shows to kind of accommodate.
And because our space at Central Community House and at our Brighton Road location are spacious, we can accommodate a lot. That in other open mics that I've attended, that they're in coffee houses, they're in basements, they're like in tight knit spaces, so they can't accommodate those things. And we always think, because dance is a big part of our program, we know we have to accommodate dance, like off rip. And we have a lot of tumblers and like people that like to flip, so or spin on their head. So we have to think in mind when we're coming into a space that if somebody can't like kickflip or spin on their head, this isn't the space that we need to be in.
Has it been difficult finding different spaces to organize events around?
Not really. We've been pretty lucky, I would say, just having great relationship with partners within the community. We pretty much kind of know, like, if we walk into the space that this isn't going to be the space for us for specifically open mic, but maybe like a workshop could work there. Yeah, typically we're pretty good at choosing the right spaces. At least we have been.
How much do you enjoy hosting events?
Oh, I love it. In one of my many adventures in life, I have a certificate in event planning. So, so it's something that I completely enjoy, and I've been managing / hosting the open mic for at least 10 years now. So I have like what we need down to a science. So like open mic, when I first started, it used to stress me out. Like, oh my gosh, planning for all these different things. But now I'm pretty good at it. So yeah.
Roll with the punches, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say if someone's thinking about hosting their own events? What are like 3 tips that you think would be really helpful for them?
Knowing your audience or who your potential audience is a big thing. What type of event you're doing, and the venue that you're hosting it, and what the limitations that venue may hold for you.
You mentioned that first one. I think it's really important for any art form. If you're making something and you're giving it to the world, and it's not just for yourself, it's really important to know who is that specific person you're reaching out to. How do you, if you're starting an event though, and if it's your first time, how do you know what that audience is?
I think a big part is, first off, knowing yourself. Like, if you are, it helps if you've been to something similar before. If you're doing a fashion show, go to a fashion show. Like, look at it not as you're an audience member, but a planner, and figure out what potentially, luckily, hopefully nothing you notice goes wrong, but think about things that could have gone wrong or could go wrong or is going wrong that is being hidden from the public, and start to plan out those things. That helps. If you need to set ground rules, like, because with our open mic, it's a family-friendly event. So whoever is hosting the open mic, which typically is Andre Barrett Jr., he'll make an announcement like, hey, we're not cussing. We're making it a family-friendly event. If you have cussing or if you're using derogatory terms, you must give a warning. And we allow our audience to decide if they're going to stay and watch that particular performance or not. Because sometimes certain pieces need to have cuss words in them. And so understanding if that is the content that you want to have, like, who, also thinking about for your audience, are you dealing with preschoolers? Are you dealing with elders? Are you dealing with seniors? Are you dealing with high school students? Because the way you would do an event for all those groups are completely different, because they have different needs and necessities. Is your space accessible? Is it like wheelchair accessible? Will you need to have an interpreter? And for a lot of our larger events now, open mics every blue moon, but we have a sign language interpreter, because that is a need that my father-in-law is deaf, and his wife is hard of hearing. And I just know, like, if they were attending our events, unless it's dance, they're not receiving anything. As well as we've had more community members that are deaf and hard of hearing. And so it is an important accommodation to have. So all that with knowing your audience and figuring out where things may go with that.
Mm-hmm. I like that. There's probably an evolution to that too, right? Because maybe when you're first starting the show, everyone's, able of hearing. And then over time you're like, oh, you know what? I'm noticing in my community that this is occurring, whatever the situation is.
Yeah.
Right? And then adjusting. Like, I think that idea that there's a continuum here, and it's what works today isn't necessarily, your audience today isn't necessarily going to be your audience even 2 months from now.
Yeah.
And constantly kind of checking in as best as possible.
Yeah. I mean, I could think about being like wheelchair or handicap accessible. Didn't really think about until we had one of our dancers break a leg. And then it was like, okay, so we need to figure out how we need to adjust our space to
Not on stage, right? They didn't.
not on no
Okay.
no no
I
no
was like during the
no
show.
no no they are a flipper and they flipped off of something and landed wrong, but just like practicing and such. um but our buildings are ADA compliant, but also thinking like, where else can we
Yeah.
fit in for different needs and stuff. you know, having young people growingly, like, we have had more students that English is not their first language, or their parents don't speak English at all, and just learning how to help, like, to explain things, because I don't speak Spanish. Like, we've had a lot of Spanish speaking young people come in, and I don't speak Spanish. Like, I took Italian in high school, and that doesn't help. And but I know very common phrases in Spanish, and I can say yes and no, and like, and then like we're starting to get some of our paperwork in a Spanish translation. So just thinking about all those different needs, and especially if it's your first event, you are not going to hit everything. Like I said, we've had a 30-year history. So within those 30 years, we've learned and adapt and changed things. And we're still needing to adapt in today. So
one of the probably biggest difficulties, in addition to just understanding your audience, is just getting people to attend. So what are the secrets that you have for getting butts in seats? Because that's when you're thinking of events, especially if it's something new that the audience isn't trained for, that can be a challenge for people.
Having a good flyer really helps us. Also, a good colorful flyer, because color is disappearing from the world. So it helps you stand out.
What do you do with the flyer? So you make the flyer. What do you do with the flyer?
So we have it digitally, so we're able to put it through all our social medias and such. And then we also, through Central, have a marketing team. So like a street team. So they go out and drop off flyers about our programs, as well as I'll just take them to the library or a coffee shop. I'll say our biggest word of mouth is our biggest, like, marketing tool. Especially with our open mic, if someone's performing for the first or the 50th time, they're so excited to tell their friends and family, like, hey, I'm going to be dancing tonight. And so it's like, people want to come and see and support that. And a part of that is our longevity, and like, people know, like, I'm going to see a fun open mic if I come,
I know you've been very generous with your time, which I appreciate. I want to finish off talking about the performers themselves. So if someone is thinking about performing on stage, first time, they might be excited, they might be nervous, they might not even know going into the show that they're going to be performing for the first time. What are some tips that you would give to people to make sure that they feel comfortable so that they can give their best when they're actually on stage?
So I'll say for me, because I deal with stage fright every time. I get super nervous, like, talking in front of a crowd. most of the time. So like for me, I always have to like make sure I use the bathroom first. Like,
Very practical tip.
yeah, like go to the bathroom, because nothing is worse like trying to recite something and then all of a sudden you're like, I gotta pay attention to my bladder now, and then you're gonna forget things. And with that, looking in the mirror and being like, okay, we can do this. And then also having a support person really helps. They may not be a performer. They may not have ever seen you perform, but there's someone you could depend on. There's someone that, hopefully loves you and wants you to do great. Having them and being able to look at them in the audience, if you choose to look at the audience. And it's okay for your first performance if you don't look at the audience at all. If you got to get through it with your eyes closed, then close your eyes, And then a goal for you is to start to open your eyes as you perform. That is okay. If you need to, I personally don't really memorize my poems. If I had to memorize and perform, it's not going to happen. So I have put my poetry in a really nice book. So it's in a nice book and I read from that way. Yeah, I think it'll be a good thing just to know what like things that might like stop you. And then a lot of times audience want to support. So if you stutter, if you mess up, if you like fall, 9 times out of 10, at least most of the audience that I have been, they'll give you encouragement, like, it's okay, baby, do it again. Like, get back up. Let's try again. And at least with our team, we'll restart your music. We'll be like, okay, we want success. We want you to succeed at the end of the day. And we gain nothing by you walking off the stage and feeling like you failed. So.
So many good points there. One of them that I took away, you mentioned that, for instance, you don't memorize your poems, but you have a nice book. You're taking your work seriously. You know what I mean? However, whatever that means to you, it's like, this is my very intentional. I'm buying this book intentionally for, when I'm on stage, I have this. I spent some money on it, because or like if you memorize, you invested time into, stand in front of the mirror, like taking what you're doing seriously at all levels, whether you're a beginner or you've been doing it for decades. I think that's really important.
And it's like, nothing is more distracting to you and to the audience to hear paper shake. And I learned after like my paper shaking, every time I'm doing it, well, I'll put in a nice hardbound binder. And so you're not hearing all that rustling. And it's something firm, like if you think like tactile, something firm for me to hold on to give me some additional support back. And then it's like, if I'm jittering, you're not noticing as much,
100%. Like being aware of your own weaknesses and preparing beforehand. Which you might need a little of experience first to be like, oh, this is what I do, so how can I, adjust this? And
it's okay that you don't get it at first. It took me a while. Actually, it took someone else it took Jackie, our director, was like,
can you stop with the...
She was like, use this. And I was like, oh, this makes so much more sense. And, ask advice from people that are older or more experienced or that have tried these things before, like tips. People love to help, as, people try to act like, they're so cynical, they're so... People love to help and be like, hey, I just need a tip. How do you do this? Or like asking, like, how do you memorize, tips on that. How often do you practice? Like, people are willing to give tips to help you out. Because again, most people don't want to see people fail. Well, at least that's what I believe. Because it's a great feeling when you see someone's success. And then, people recognize like, hey, you helped me out. to get over the stepping stone. And doesn't that make everyone feel better? So
Yeah, and it's in everyone's best interest to have a good show.
mm-hmm.
You know, no one enjoys. It's uncomfortable for everyone.
Yeah.
When someone like has a hard time on stage.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, not to be selfish, but like if I'm in the audience and I'm paying for a show or I'm just attending a show, I'm using my time for a show, and these performers are just like falling all over the place and like tripping up on the work. Like it's not an enjoyable experience for anybody. I want you to succeed.
It benefits everyone. It benefits the environment as a whole, because it's great to feel success, and even to see like someone become triumphant. It's like I've seen the loudest roars be given to like a kid that was like stuttering or felt like they did terrible, and then got over that and like was like took a second, even if they stepped off the mic but came back up. Their applause was louder because it was like, you were triumphant, you succeed, you overcame something. And it's so beautiful because you're part of that experience too. You get to be a part of someone's success. And who doesn't want that?
Katerina, any final things that you'd like to share just about transit arts or the work you guys are doing?
Yeah, we have free programs Tuesday through Thursday, currently going on right now. Tuesdays is dance, Wednesdays is music, and Thursdays is visual arts, currently going on right now. We will be changing things in the summertime because we always add new programs for summer. But again, our program is free for ages 12 to 21. And we hope to have a lot of fun with you. Our website is transitarts.com. All updated schedules are on there. And we're on Facebook and Instagram.
Perfect.
Yep.
Cool. Katerina, thank you for being with us. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Cool.